Mystery Mountain Men. I recently learned about this sub and felt like I had a story that fit the mold. I've often felt like this was an occurrence that almost aired towards something paranormal or a hallucination from sleep deprivation. But after reading some submissions here, I think it was just a couple people with bad intentions. When I was around 18 or 19 years old, so 10 years ago now, I enjoyed taking impromptu road trips. Being from Virginia, it was usually a trip up to the Blue Ridge Parkway. I've driven the entire length about 3 times now, and it's always more beautiful than the last. I've never encountered anyone that felt threatening, except for on the first night of my 3rd trip. When I began my drive, it was already late, and once I reached the parkway, it was pitch black outside. I drove for about 45 minutes on the parkway and decided to stop at an overlook area to take a little snoozer. Was around midnight. I'm fully aware of how dangerous that sounds in the now, and some could say I had it coming. But at the time, I was young, trying to escape my reality, and had never experienced any issues or weird happenings when I did this on my previous trips. After about 30 minutes of being asleep, I suddenly woke up, and there was a man with his face pressed against my window, practically passing back out from the fear. I couldn't even scream. He was probably in his 60s, long hair, in white long johns, and appeared as if he'd been rolling around in the dirt. We locked eyes, and he bolted towards a white truck that was parked on the road by the entrance of the overlook. I immediately shot up and drove further into the parkway. I never saw that truck again. About 5 minutes down the road, there was a man running through the middle of the street towards my car. He was young 20s, but only in his underwear, not even shoes. He was waving me down and yelling, "Help." But after what had just occurred at the overlook, I kept going. I drove in that direction for about another 5 to 10 minutes, expecting to see another vehicle either broken down or at an overlook. I had assumed he was one of the college kids in the area, and something went awry on an outing with buddies. But I saw nothing. This creeped me out enough to turn around and drive back towards the highway and look for a motel to stay at for the night. I fully expected to see him or the white truck heading back to the main road, as they both were going in that direction. But I saw nothing. It was as if he'd vanished. Even as I exited the parkway, I saw not a single other vehicle or person. Where did this guy emerge from? Needless to say, I will always book a room beforehand, moving forward with any and all trips. I, 24 years old female, think I'm being stalked, and I can't tell by how many people. Reposted to break up text wall. Burner account, obviously. I know the title sounds paranoid, but please bear with me. I work full-time at a public university in the US as an office manager, and am enrolled in grad school at the same institution. I graduate this May. I have in-person night classes 3 days a week that start right after I get off work. My apartment is on the 1st floor of a complex about 10 minutes away. Over the past few months, I've had numerous bizarre occurrences around my home and workplace. The first, to my knowledge, was in September and was something my neighbor across the hall, very sweet older woman, told me. A man was banging on my door for around an hour just after midnight. I was not home. My neighbor poked her head out to ask him what was going on. And he said he was a door dasher with no food or bags in his hands, apparently. My neighbor watched him through the peephole and told me he tried the doorknob multiple times. No ring camera or anything, so no footage. As far as I know, he didn't come back, but I've also had 3 or 4 instances over this several-month period where someone knocked on my bedroom window. Blackout curtains always closed, late at night, loud enough to wake me and my tiny dog. Never saw who it was. In October, a woman came to my sliding glass door about a month later demanding to come in because her stolen device had apparently been pinging my apartment. When I refused, she called the sheriff's department. The deputy who came asked me a couple questions and left, but did confirm that a device was pinging my apartment. Never found out if she meant a phone or what. The woman hung out in the parking lot before leaving a few minutes later. Obviously, I've never stolen any phone, so I was completely bewildered. Never saw her again. In December, things came to a head when I found a plug-in GPS tracker in the OBD port under my dashboard. Car dealership where it got serviced last said they didn't use that brand. Land Air C, and yes, I have the model and serial number. And didn't perform any services that would have warranted putting it in there. I called the cops and they just wrote down a few details and left. University police were also informed since the tracker was, probably, placed either on campus or at my apartment. The tracker was the biggest red flag. I never check my OBD port, so I have no idea how long it was there. I told my unit director, and he offered to subtly remove mentions of me around the office and on the website, which I accepted. I am, however, posted up at the office front desk for like 80% of my day. This past Tuesday, right before I left for lunch, a middle-aged man came into the office wearing a hairnet, surgical mask, hoodie, and sunglasses. He claimed to be a prospective student and had questions about FAFSA. He was extremely hard to understand. I directed him to the financial aid office across campus, and he kept asking questions that our office cannot answer. I thought, sure, fine, maybe harmless, and just not all there mentally. He walks over to our coffee machine, not for communal use, BTW. But I didn't want to be a bitch, and just starts making coffee. He's still there when I leave, and one of my staff watches the desk while I'm out. When I return from lunch, he's gone, but walks in after me a few minutes later and just sits in the lobby on his phone before getting up to leave almost immediately. I was off work Wednesday and Thursday, so I came in Friday. I felt like giving my mostly undergrad staff a break, so I gave them permission to head home early, inadvertently leaving me alone in the office. The man came back wearing the exact same clothes, mask, hairnet, and sunglasses, within 5 minutes of the office clearing out. Our office is technically open to the public, but isn't really public-facing, and he had no reason for being there, especially that late in the day. He came in, barely acknowledged me, and said he was going to bring back bottled water for our coffee machine. He left again. I'm very creeped out by this, so I messaged my director, working remotely, and he got an IT guy from the adjacent building to come over with his laptop to keep my company. I explained the situation, and he said he'd stay with me till close. He settles in my director's office just around the corner, but it still looked like I was alone. The man does come back without water, and leans against the desk trying to start a conversation with me. It guy comes around the corner and stands between me and him. And he quickly changes the subject and asks about financial aid again, for the fourth time in as many days, before being directed away and leaving immediately. I'm strongly considering informing campus police about this. Like I said, they already know about the tracker. I have had problems in the past during my undergrad years at a different institution, with men and a woman being creepy towards me. But nothing to this level. I have no idea what to do. I can't tell what's isolated and what's connected. My family lives an hour away and has been no help at all. I have a sinking feeling that things are going to escalate. Any advice on what I should do or change at home, work, or elsewhere is appreciated. I'm open to further questions. The whole thing felt off. Must have been 2015 fall. I was 18 at the time, and for years I had taken long walks late in the evening in my hometown of Curacao. Never saw or had any problems. As I was walking on that night, it was dark out, trough the castle park. I noticed over the moat on top of the wall, someone standing and looking towards the park. I, out of nowhere, got a sudden rush of a bold feeling like, the castle grounds is public space. I can go if I want. And I started crossing the moat on the long bridge. The person stood right on top of the wall where the bridge leads into the wall tunnel. As I was getting closer to the wall, and this person, still standing there, unmoving, looking out to the park, I started to get a feeling that something was off and that I should not go there, but thought that I'm just overthinking it. It's a long bridge, a lot of time to think. Nevertheless, the feeling got weirder and weirder, and just before I walked into the tunnel leading into the castle grounds, I looked up at the guy standing above me. Here, I've always tried to calm myself and think that it must have just been like a big tie. But this person had an open suit jacket and a white shirt with a large blood-red stain on the chest area. I emerged into the tunnel and really started to reconsider my course, but again, going against my gut, screaming at me to turn and run. I thought. The person didn't move, even as I looked up. Maybe it'll be fine. As soon as I exited the tunnel and looked behind me, the person was silently coming down the stairs, on the wall, towards me. This means that as soon as I went into the tunnel, this person had to turn around and start going into the grounds at the same time. At this point, it took every fiber of my being not to run. He might be faster. I continued to walk at a fast pace towards the castle where some buildings are. Now this guy had a chance to go into the tunnel I had just come from, or go to the other tunnel in front of the castle along the wall from behind the buildings. The third exit towards the sea was closed due to construction. Before I went behind the houses, I look back and see him coming straight for me. And as soon as I'm out of sight behind the buildings, I take off. As fast as my legs could move me, boat trough the tunnel to the front of the castle, cross the bridge island into the town, didn't look back if he was coming, just ran. Didn't go the usual route back home as that was a straight road and the guy could easily follow. Instead, ran trough the town, taking random turns on small roads till I got home. I stood at the window looking out for an hour, but he wasn't there. shook me to my core. All I want to say is, trust the gut and get out. I think I saw something that I was not supposed to have. So occasionally I drive to McDonald's for a breakfast on my way to work, or just if I'm up early, and this is around the time of 5:30 to 6 a.m. It's always dark at this time. Today I was driving back, and I noticed two men in the wooded area by the side of the road I drive on. They were both in black, and they were dragging what looked like a black bag, trash bag, but quite big. I sort of slowed down to get a better look, and I pray they didn't notice me or see my reg. But it was rather odd. There was no cars nearby and no other people around. Super dark, but I could make out they were about 30 to 40 perhaps. But I was driving at about 40 miles per hour when I clocked them and slowed down to around 30, maybe just out of curiosity. I've reported this online to the police, but I really would like to know what was in that bag. I won't be returning or going to check it out. Genuinely afraid of what I might find. In the back of my mind, I'm hoping it's just some guy's fly tipping, but then I also have this little voice telling me that something way more sinister was at play. I mean, how did they get it there without a vehicle? That's what I want to know. If it took two of them to carry it, how far had they been walking with it? Perhaps they were dropped off by a car or something. Anyway, I freaked out on the drive back, thinking every car was following me home. Even stopped at the end of my street to make sure no cars were loitering before making it to my house. Didn't feel like eating the breakfast in the end either. A man tried to break into my hotel room. This post was formally removed. Reposting with clarification, since some people can't imagine how the lobby could see hotel room doors, or how a hotel room on the top floor could have a window. So, to help you imagine, Google the Embassy Suites lobby in Atlanta, Georgia. This may not be the exact one I stayed at, but it was similar. The hotel lobby was in the center. The hotel rooms lined the walls in a U shape, and a mezzanine balcony overlooked the lobby at every floor. There were windows on the outside of each room towards the mezzanine balcony. We were on the top floor, but this was still the case for our room. Not sure why it wouldn't be. Additionally, the structure made the hotel very echoey. The lobby had something like marble or laminate floors, and visitors' footsteps resonated all the way to the top floor, along with their distorted voices and the sound of the water feature. And, if I remember properly, the elevator and hallways leading to the rooms were plexiglass. So those structures also didn't dampen sound like carpet and wood. These details lead me to believe that the lobby could have seen and heard the commotion. Now, to the story. When I was about 9 years old, my family went on vacation. My father got a room at Embassy Suites. For himself, 5 daughters, and 2 of our female friends, all aged 9 to 15. I guess it drew somebody's attention, because that night, somebody tried to break in. I had sleep problems, even at that age. It was about 3 a.m. I was sitting in the living room chair in the dark. There was a man at the window when I heard the door open. It happened so fast. The chain lock snapped taut, halting the door. He forcefully thrusted the door twice more, but the chain didn't break. He then squeezed his face through the crack. I watched his single eye dart frantically around the room. He looked coked up or something. His gaze passed over everybody sleeping on the floor. Then, he noticed me, sitting in the chair, perfectly illuminated by the light from the crack in the door. We locked eyes for about 30 seconds. His eye seemed to bulge. He thrusted the door once more, failing to break the lock. Then he closed the door and left. The whole time, nobody awoke. They may have been drinking that night. Yes, even though they were underage. I told my father about it the next morning, but he didn't seem to care. But I've always been unsettled by a few details. The setup of the hotel meant that anybody manning the desk could have likely heard the commotion and seen him breaking in. He didn't seem worried by this. He opened the door so quickly, perhaps he had access to a key. Most notably, how brazen his attempt was. Like he was certain he'd not get caught or he wouldn't face consequences. Perhaps he'd done it before.